4-6 with Mr. Roger Williams, author of my favorite book, The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect. It is my favorite book. I say it all the time because it's fucking true. Just like I say my name's Tommy because my name is Tommy. Buy the book. It'll be in the description. You know Roger. Or don't buy it, but you'll probably like it, so buy it.
Listen to Tommy.
Listen to Tommy. Real quick. Yeah, I was busy last week, but I'm gonna talk with Don the Pleb because the way I'm because I love he's the one that the first time I talked to him is the first time I had heard a really good microphone, and that's what led to me getting a new microphone. And the way I screen record, because Zoom does a weird thing where it doesn't take up the whole screen, so I kind of gotta like maximize it, but then the image gets pixelated and I'm screen recording a pixelated image, so it's like a 1080p recording of the whole thing. Just gets, and Don's are always great because it's like his image will be the full screen, and then his guest will be superimposed at like 30% of the screen. And that's what I want, because I'm always trying to improve. Not that you asked any of this, but I am always trying
but it's interesting. I am interested.
Yeah, I'm always trying to improve. I mean, like, you know, around Christmas, right? I got the microphone. I put a black background up, and I kind of did some shitty audio stuff. And I remember saying to you, because you were like, this is a big jump in quality. And I was like, I hope to make this same jump again. And you were like, you can. And sure enough, I would say I have made the jump again. And now I'm happy with this. The audio is on point. But now I think that's just the nature of this thing, is I just want to always tick it up. Just keep growing. Because if I'm not making improvements, to me that's like a fate worth
I liked
death.
when you first put up the sound blocks, and you were like, I might have gone too far.
Oh, dude, it was early on. I'm okay with it now. I'm okay with it. Dude, the first time I actually was not comfortable sitting in there. You know, but now I'm used to it. Now I've come to appreciate it, and I think I'm used to it. It's not as like psychedelic anymore. But my parents came over on Wednesday, and they both came in here and went, "Oh." My mom was standing in here. She was like, "Oh, I don't like this." And I was like, "Oh, it's haunting. This is a cathedral. This is a dark black mass cathedral in here." But
yeah, well, when I got my electric lawnmower, the off the Bitcoin fairy money, I sprung for the totally electric rotary lawnmower, and so I've been mowing the yard my entire life, and it sounds like an explosion, every hundredth of a second. And this thing just goes. You can hear the air being whisked around by the blades. The blades are traveling about twice the speed of a gas mower's, and you can hear them cutting the grass.
Wow.
You can actually hear it going as it's cutting the grass. It's like, and it's like you get out there on Sunday morning because I mowed the yard this morning. Okay, yeah. and it's just like shh, and it's completely weird. And the other thing is that. Which I never suspected, because the electric weed eater was almost as powerful as a gas weed eater. It was good enough, but you could tell it didn't last as long, and it wasn't quite as good. The electric mower is better than a gas mower. You hit that thick clump of grass that would just stall the gas mower out, and then you're dragging it back over to the concrete so you can try to start it again. You hear the electric mower go, and it's just like within a fraction of a second, the motor controller tells that there's more load, and it just pours energy back into it, and it doesn't slow down.
Jesus.
It's nuts. I can mow the yard faster with that thing than I ever could with the gas mower. It's nuts.
I've mowed a lawn. Perhaps this is like the antithesis of like the American experience. I've mowed the lawn one time in my life. I did it once, and it was for my dad, and I think it was last summer. They were out of town, and he was like, "I want you to mow it when we're gone." I ended up because I'm 30 years old. I still don't know how to tie a tie. I think I've told you this story. I had my cab driver, this Hispanic guy, probably in his 50s, barely spoke a word of English, in Los Angeles. I had him pull the cab over, and I paid him an extra $10 to tie my tie as he dropped me off at a medical school interview at a prestigious institution. He was like, no, and I was like, no. He's like, doctor? And I was like, hopefully. And he was like smiling like, okay. And I was like, there's just some things where I think like to me it's just like that's unnecessary brain power. I never learned to mow the lawn, and I remember our neighbor came over and did it because I guess our lawn was looking, because my parents, it's a nice little quaint neighborhood, there's homeowners association. This was last summer. I'm telling this story like it was decades ago. This was less than 12 months ago, and the neighbor came over and mowed the lawn, and I guess it was more embarrassing because at one point I came out and was like, what's up, man? And it wasn't even like, oh, they're gone, so I mowed the lawn for them because it's starting to look messy. It was like, there's an able-bodied man home, and he did. So my dad was like, you got to learn to mow the lawn. Point is I mowed it once, gas. I liked it. It was a push, but yeah, I liked it. But man, I definitely saw in that moment, maybe like a 20, 30-minute job, I saw in that experience, I was like, oh, I totally get like the stereotype of like the middle-aged man obsessed with his lawn. I was like, I understand this. Like I looked at it as a video game. I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely see where you turn this into an art.
I had that when I first moved to Mandeville. I had a neighbor who would mow my lawn if I took too long.
What'd you say? Mandeville?
Mandeville.
Oh, the neighborhood I lived in college was called Mandeville.
Yeah, Mandeville. It's a suburb of New Orleans.
Keep going.
But I had a neighbor who, if he decided my grass had gotten to it, he would just mow my yard. He would just mow my front yard. Yeah, just and I would like don't worry about it. Just it was just keeping the standards up. Some people are like that,
dude. I guess that's yeah, man. I mean, I'm
like, as long as there aren't coyotes prowling through it, I'm good.
Dude. There's this comedian. I think the last time I regularly listened to Joe Rogan was like early 2016, maybe late 2015. But I vividly remember listening to him, and he had on this one guy. I think he was a director. His name was Bobcat Goldthwait, and yeah, neat guy. I think somewhat famous. I don't know anything. I just vaguely remember this, and I remember him talking about his deceased brother. And this was like a year after my brother died, so I kind of identified with it. This guy was in his like 50s, but he had a brother named Tommy, and I remember, but his brother lived in like upstate New York, and like really like ran with bikers, was just like had this crazy the antithesis of Bobcat. Bobcat was, I think he's a Jewish guy. He's like this kind of well kept, artistic, sure, but like a successful kind of guy. And his brother Tommy, in and out of jail, but the point is he went up to his house in like upstate New York, and he was like, and Tommy used to he had this house out in the middle of nowhere, and he would grow corn. He had a clearing in the woods, just this circular clearing after like 100 miles of woods, and he would grow corn, but he didn't put it in rows or anything. It was just this mass of corn 360 degrees around his like little tiny like cabin in the woods. And he was like, I remember I was like, hey Tommy, like what's all this corn for? He's like, oh, it's for the deer. And he was like, oh, that's nice of you. He goes, oh no, I shoot them when they're eaten. And he was like, you can only get one deer a year. He was like, nobody comes out here and checks. And he went into his tiny little cabin in the woods. So Bobcat goes into his brother's bathroom, just a little tiny, and he goes, why is the bathroom mirror cracked? It's a tiny little bathroom and there's a window. And he goes, every morning when I'm taking a shit, and he's like, I roll a fatty. And he looks in the corner and there's this rifle. And he goes, and I put the rifle out the window while I'm shooting, smoking a blunt. And he goes, I saw a deer yesterday, so I blasted him.
Deer.
And he goes, I blasted him and it cracked the window. And he was like, Tommy, you're a piece of art. He said, you're a piece of work. And, I don't know what the point of that story was, but it was, I should always remember that.
It was funny.
Tommy, what's this corn for? It's for the deer, Bobby. It's for when I blast them. It's just rolling a fat
since I mentioned my lawn mowing neighbor, he was a guy named Dave Miller, and he was a 12-year veteran of the Louisiana State Troopers.
Oh shit!
And having had lived most of my once I left home life in sketchy neighborhoods, I had run-ins with the police that were generally not like dangerous, not like George Floyd or anything, but not pleasant either. I mean, sure. It's like I could tell that I was the enemy because I lived in this place, and even though I was white, it didn't matter. So I kind of freaked out a bit when I found out that Dave had been a cop, and when he realized what my problem was, he reassured me. He said, "Oh no! He was like, you're right. You have a point." He said, and this is a guy who is a 12-year veteran of the Louisiana State Troopers. He was a hero cop. He has a picture that he keeps of him and one of his colleagues standing on the roof of a burning grain silo, rescuing the workers.
Fuck.
Bearing in mind that grain silos can explode.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
a burning grain silo.
Yeah.
Okay, and he told me, if you meet a cop who has been on the job more than 5 years, then the odds are they are probably corrupt. He said it's a thankless job. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay enough. It's very dangerous. And if you meet someone who has been in it for more than 4 or 5 years, they are almost certainly getting something out of it other than their paycheck. He was a rare exception because he is one of the most devout, actual Christian people I've ever met. Mm-hmm. And he believed that it was his duty to stay in the service and do what he could to improve the world. Dude. And even he said his plan was to stay until he could retire at 20, and he didn't make it. He had to leave after 12 years. But that was the guy who mowed my yard when he thought that I was taking a little too long to get around to it. I think about that. Yeah, it is a thankless job, man, to be a police officer. And there's definitely there's clearly evidence of corruption. I'm not a lawyer. I can't say what is and what, but there are video evidence of guys planting guns. It's always very easy to say, it's a couple bad apples, and it's most aren't, but it is the cops are just you and me, you look at someone like Delta Force, Dale, and it's this is a guy that's the tip of the spear for the United States. You send him in to get bin Laden. You send it, you call the cops when someone breaks in your house. When 9/11 happens, you call Dale, right? And those guys are different. They operate on a different level, and it's but man, cops, they get a shitty salary. Well, someone like Dale doesn't even get a lot of the opportunities that cops do to just be abusive to random people. They're not even called into service unless there is some deep shit going on.
Oh yeah, no,
but you're a cop on the beat, and and Dave did traffic service. He was a state trooper, but he also did undercover, and that was one of the things I think that finally broke him. In fact, was he spent about a year undercover and having to hang out with all these bikers and shit, drinking in bars, and it was just totally against all of the grain of his personality, because he was really by nature this very straight-laced. Like I said, I've had reason to kind of suspect the Christianity of people who call themselves Christian, but not Dave. Mm-hmm. He walked the walk. Yeah. And that was, I think, what undid him in his job, is that he just couldn't fake it anymore. He couldn't continue. He knew he was going to lose himself.
Yeah.
if he kept doing it.
Yeah, it's
anyway. This is certainly not where we expected this episode to go.
Who cares? I was gonna say, whenever I've worked a job, I've always, I've talked about before living in New Hampshire, Arkansas, New Hampshire, Georgia, Maine, Georgia, now Maryland. Depending on where I've lived, I've talked about it, ad nauseum on here. My political views change as I move into new areas. I'll go into a place super conservative, and then as I live there more, through osmosis, I'll be like, oh, no, I get where you're coming from, and then I'll slowly become liberal, and then I'll move again, and I'll be like, who are these backwoods conservatards? And then I'll be there for a couple of years, and I'll be like, oh, it's entirely different. You can't, the same viewpoints and opinions that I guess arise naturally living in downtown San Francisco are not the same of those that come up living in the mountains of New Hampshire. The point is
really the funny thing about a place like San Francisco or New Orleans is that you have all of those things in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we have the super conservatives and we have the really liberal types, and it's all living within a few miles of one another, if not on top of one another.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it obviously creates a lot of friction in the political landscape, but it's really different. You think of you go to certain places and you think, well, there's a prevailing political viewpoint. Now, like I said, I live in the suburb of Mandeville, which is if you've ever seen a map of the New Orleans area, New Orleans is sandwiched between Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River. And I live on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain. If you look at it, there is a bridge called the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway that spans Lake Pontchartrain at its widest point. Typical Louisiana thing. Built it in the hardest possible place. If they built it 5 miles either direction, it would have been 10 miles shorter. But no, we built it right across the middle of the widest part of the lake. And I live on the other end of it from New Orleans, and I commute across it every day to go to work. But Mandeville is one of the reddest county size. We have parishes instead of counties, but if we had counties, Mandeville would be one of the reddest counties in the entire United States.
Jesus.
It's blood red over here. Now you cross the bridge and go into New Orleans, and it is one of the bluest, most democratic areas in the entire South. Mm-hmm. And it's 40 miles from here.
Yeah.
So, so you have, but one of the things that I read an article about it many, many years ago, and everything that I have seen has backed it up, is that for all our flaws in the South, for all of the evil shit that went down here, one thing you don't have in the South is Black people and white people not being able to coexist. Yeah. You don't have monolithic neighborhoods where you're taking your life in your hands if you're the wrong race and you go into this neighborhood. We simply don't have that. And part of it is because going back to the era of slavery and everything is that everyone coexisted. The servants and the masters all lived together. And that continued to be the case after emancipation. So there have been a couple of really infamous race riots in the New Orleans area. But the thing is, you don't have this thing like you do in other large cities where if you're not Italian and you go in this neighborhood, you're taking your life in your hands. If you're not Black and you go in this neighborhood, you're taking your life in your hands. That's just simply not the way it works. We have people who live in $1 million mansions, and literally 2 blocks over are people who are on welfare and food stamps. Yeah. And, that's just the whole city is integrated that way because we've, it may not have been for good reasons, but the haves and the have-nots here have always kind of lived among one another. And so we sort of learned how to do that without just erupting into violence over the very idea that this person who doesn't belong is in our neighborhood.
I was going to say, I kind of like hope years down the road when this podcast is enormous, I always kind of just hope that things on this podcast are taken out of context, because so like last week when I had on Don Albrecht, Army veteran, FBI veteran, SWAT team, and we were talking about suppression of free speech and how it begins as like a good thing. People agree. We all agree Alex Jones shouldn't be on there. He was questioning Sandy Hook. Everyone's like, yes, of course. But that's how it always tiptoes to, you spoke out against the state, time to kill all your family. That's where it goes. So, and I was saying when you make a word unsayable, you give it power. And the analogy I use is this. What is magic? Magic is a vocal incantation with a physical effect at a distance. If we were to break it down into science, that's what it is, right? You say something and it affects a change, right? So as opposed to me having to shoot a gun and a projectile goes and blows up the wall, if I, abracadabra, I could make it so.
Yeah, that's one form of magic.
So
yes, that's the logos.
So yeah, so my analogy is when there's a word you can't say. For instance, you can call me cracker. No one gives a shit if you call me a dirty white trash cracker. Least of all me. I don't give a shit. I'm not even saying that. You're allowed to say... No, I don't give a fuck. Because of that, if you say it to me, it has no effect on me. I don't care, That's why I try to expose myself to things I don't like. If someone right after my brother died, if someone made a suicide joke, I would be really upset. I'd be like, don't they know what I've been through? But now I realize, like, hey... just because that's the thing that affects me, well, you know what? Can I make a 9/11 joke or a Titanic joke? Well, how do I not know someone else? So it's by expose myself to all of it, I develop immunities to it. My rationale is by making the N-word a word you cannot say, you are giving the person who is going to say it. You're not protecting the black individual, you're giving ammunition to the racist individual. So if he really wants, he has that weapon. And that weapon is a form of magic. He can say it to you over the phone on the other side of the planet, and it'll ruin your day. You go home, man, this white guy called me today. You know what he said to me? He called me. So my point is you are giving power to the individual you're not protecting anybody. You're just giving power to the asshole. The point of that whole explanation.
Yes. It's like you're refining the plutonium.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. You are giving the weapon to a bad guy. By using that analogy, and then, and I finish it with saying, and even though that, I still never say it because I'm not a hateful racist person. And Don agreed with me. But he was like, yeah, by having these topics that are verboten, you are only giving power to people who wish to use them for evil. And Don goes, I agree. I would think that it started with, people saying that you're not allowed to say the N-word. And I just laughed because I was like, I hope someone clips that one day in 20 years. And it's like, it's me, pale skin, blue eyes, Dawn, white guy with a crop top or the flat top military haircut and going, it all started when they said we couldn't say the N-word. And I'm like, exactly. It's like if someone just clips that. And then I hope in that eventual CNN hit piece, they also clip it with just you and me nodding and you going, we don't have a lot of disparities here because the masters and servants, they live together. So after the Civil War, we all got along. And I'm like, precisely. And I just hope these little things are spliced out of context, or it's just me.
Oh, they will be.
Oh, I know. But the reason why I love that is because because information is so ubiquitous and anyone can access it, it's not behind a paywall.
Yeah.
You were forced to go and try to find the clip, and then in the clip you find that it was taken out of context, and that's how you gain new fans. That being said, I can't wait for the clipped hit pieces of Dale being like, I think you should shoot him in the face. And I'm like, I agree. And it's like, that was, it's, but point is how the back to the politics thing real quick. I have found whenever I go with the exception of just like neo-Nazi racists or something, whether it being a bouncer at the bar, whether it be working security at an apartment complex, whether it be working at a liquor store last summer, I have always found that when I go and work a job, these people that you normally, oh man, fuck the bouncers, they threw us out last night because my friend was, he spilled his drink and they said we were too drunk. Or man, they didn't let my girl in because she didn't have shoes. Or work at a liquor store, these assholes ID'd me, dude. Don't they know I look 30? When you go and work at these jobs and you're working as a bouncer and it's you and all your buddies and it's night after night and you're making minimum wage, shitty hours, and there's just drunk assholes till finally where you're like, you know what? I don't want to deal with any of these assholes. If that guy threw up, you're too drunk. You got to go. And then you got your manager telling you, hey, if they get too drunk here and they fall and hit their head, they're going to shut down the bar and then you guys are all out of a summer job. So you're like, fuck it. If they're too drunk, kick them out. If they don't look like they're 21, check their ID. If you're at the liquor store, you're like, hey, dude, state law. I'm sorry. You have to show me your ID. That's not my rule. The point is whenever I've worked these jobs and I've gone into the hated groups, in time I start to see where they're coming from. I'm like, oh, they're not assholes. Like, when you deal with the volume of people coming into buy liquor or coming into a bar, you just develop a certain kind of calloused, a skin that you have to use to affect them. So I say all of that to say, I imagine if you and I were on the police force.
That was pretty much what Dave said about being a cop, is that you form this thick skin and people just basically cease being real. They become caricatures.
Well, what I mean, it'd be like if you and I were in a police chase and we pulled someone over and you've got your wife, and let's say I get married and I have a kid on the way, and it's you and I, and instead of these podcasts, what if these conversations were just every Sunday you and I were on patrol together? We've become friends. I know now your family, you know my family, we know each other's backstories, and we see a guy who's acting fidgety and he won't put his hands on the dash, and we're like, hey dude, and we pull over people all day, every day, and everyone, they stop the car, they turn it off, and they go, got my license, registration, we say thank you. And then after 99 of those, we see some guy who's in a beat up car and he keeps, and we're like, dude, just turn the car off. Like, this is all you have to do, just turn the car off. And he's kind of looking around, and we're going, is he reaching for a gun? It's not just you, and it's not just me and my partner anymore. You're like, this is Tommy. Tommy's got his parents and his two brothers, and he lost a sibling. And this is Roger. Roger still goes and sees movies with his dad, and he writes, and he has a collection of vacuum tubes, and it's like, we know each other, right? To all of a sudden, where you and I might look at this guy and go, man, it's him or us, and right now he's not listening to our rules. Guns out. Don't shoot, but hey. And he's going, and he's starting to reach around, and we're like, hey, motherfucker, you're now putting us in danger. I mean, I get where all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're fucking beating a guy and someone catches it on the camera, and now your city's burning because it's like, Roger and Tommy, look at these two white cops, and all anyone else sees is our mugshots like this. And you and I are like, no one saw that entire year-long backstory of us no one saw you and I helping an old woman out of a car. Like, it's... Man,
well, I think that is the case sometimes. I mean, that was something that when Dave Hero Cop Miller himself said. But then you look at some people like
Chauvin, who are just legitimate assholes.
The dude is fucking stone cold killer. I mean, he was like enjoying himself as he choked the life out of this guy.
Exactly.
I mean, it's on film.
No, that's what I mean. That's not even an opinion. There is film, right? Or it's like that guy that shot the guy in the hallway a couple years ago with his gun, and it said "you're fucked" on the side. Like,
I mean, that's a little
right?
bit over.
But then let's play devil's advocate. So that happens, and we go, yeah, that guy is an asshole. And then you have people going defund.
But then you're right. There's the situations where it's really just a nasty job, and sometimes the public. I mean, I have to deal with random people that I don't want to deal with, just because I work in industry. It's not even like working in retail. There's the people that I have to meet at random. At least are employed by somebody. So somebody vetted them at some point and decided to pay them to deal with me. And a lot of times they are like, holy fuck. Well, it's like what species are these guys? Because if they're human and I'm human, something is wrong. They're just
there's another out of context clip. How are we the same? Because I don't think we're the same. I'm just saying, I think intelligence and IQs are there's another just clip that's going to come in. But the point is like, yeah. So we do see these guys like a Chauvin, where it's like, yeah, these guys need to go to jail. But then you have these mobs that are like, get rid of all cops. And then it's like you and me, and we're the cops, and we're going, wait, do you know how many times we've been called and there actually was a guy who was threatening, a young family, or there's a young woman?
I do not want to live in a world that does not have cops.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. And
that's going to be chaos of a completely different order of magnitude.
Well, what I mean is, so now you have a Chauvin, but then you have the Tommy and the Rogers who are just doing the beat, and now everyone hates us, and we're like, dude, we've never done a bad thing in our life. Like, I'm sorry, that guy was an asshole, but we do more good than you can imagine, but it doesn't make the news because it's not sexy, and we're getting paid $40,000 a year, and now people are going fucking pigs. And you know what? At a certain point, you and I go, fuck these people. You know what? Fuck them. We're making nothing. My wife cheated on me. Fuck it. Let's let the drug dealer go if he kicks us back an extra $100 a week. Yeah. I mean, I see where it happens.
In honesty, it would help if our union didn't solidly protect every one of us, even the bad ones, when something went wrong.
Yes.
That is a bad thing.
Yes.
And that is something that reflects badly on the good cops. The police unions and the blue wall of silence stand up to shield anyone, even the ones that are clearly bad.
Yes.
And at some point the Tommies and the Rogers have to say, this is enough. We have to kick the Chauvins off the force. We have to make it clear that they are not us, we are not them.
Yeah.
They don't belong here. And we don't keep protecting them after they've because this wasn't the first time Chauvin choked the life out of somebody.
Yeah, so, I
mean, this is a guy who got off on this, and at some point you have to be able to say, this is Tommy and Roger here. This dude is seriously fucked up, and we don't want to be associated with him.
Yeah,
you need to do something about him, and there is a big problem that in most police forces of any size in the U.S., the police union is completely unwilling to say, no, this is a bad apple. We need to get him out of the barrel. So hopefully that is a thing that will that may start to change.
Yeah.
With the Derek Chauvin prosecution, because I think they did a brilliant job in the prosecution on that trial. That was like, I have never seen anything like that in the prosecution of a cop. And it's like the whole structure of the trial process is supposed to be that it's to the advantage of the defense to go second, because they get to see what the prosecution is going to do. But in that case, the prosecution just like nailed shut all the doors and windows, blocked the vent. They shut out everything. They basically left the defense with no possible case when they took the floor, and it was almost embarrassing how poor the defense was compared to the prosecution in that case.
So you have a Tommy and a Roger going, no, we can't be associated with this guy. You got at a certain point, you also have to look at, it's not like you and I, it's not like this is an NFL team, right? And we're all making $30 million a year, and one guy beats his wife, and we go, you know what? He doesn't represent us. This is a bad apple. He's not a member of our football team. Well, it's worth it. That's worth it. You got a good gig going on. Again, what about when your back's sore and you work 12 hours a day and you're making 40 grand a year? How much of a fuck do you really give to go, I'm going to stand, and I'm just being devil's advocate. You're just on your 900th day of work with no break, and how much of you really is going to come in and go, today's the day I stand up and I say, we are not Chauvin? Or how much of you just goes, clock in, I don't give a fuck, get in your car, I don't get... Like, I also get that. It's very easy for me to sit here doing what I love every day as happiness. I'm living the dream. I get to do whatever the fuck I want, and I make money doing it. It's a cheat code. Talking to you, I mean, how much...
Honestly, it's that way for me in my job, too, because I thoroughly love doing what I do, doing industrial control systems and the stuff that I create and the stuff that I get to play with.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I didn't have to do it, there's a part of me that would be strongly motivated to do at least a lot of what I do for free, just because it's fun.
That's what I mean. Is so we have these things where we're kind of upbeat and we're not in the mode of like.
But being a cop is a shitty
Well,
job.
that's what I mean. How much of it is like, I'm gonna rock, what if I come out against Chauvin? Is the rest of the police force, are they all going to shun me? Maybe it won't be publicly, so I can't... Are they going to shun me? Is that going to make my job more... It's like when people come into the liquor store and be like, I don't have my ID, like, I am 40, like, and I'm just saying, you guys should maybe go take a stand with your boss and be like, hey, maybe we don't need an ID every... But it's like, dude, I'm making $7 an hour. It's 1 a.m. on a Friday. I don't give a fuck if you come in here or not. Have your... Like, there's no romantic... You know what? Maybe we need to reform. No, if I'm on the good side of the boss, I don't have to work shitty hours anymore. Like, I'm making $7 an hour. Am I going to deal with this whole bullshit, or am I going to go, hey, Arby's is paying $8 an hour. Peace. It's... So you have these guys that are cops, and at a certain point, do they just go, I'm just going to go moonlight. Fuck all of you. I'm out.
Yeah.
I think we're painting it a lot with romantic idyllicism that a lot of guys are just like, yeah,
and also you have to ask yourself if you're going to end up having your partner shoot you and say, and the last thing you hear is your partner saying, dude, you should have just taken the money.
You should have shut the fuck up. Yeah, you should have shut the fuck up.
It's like,
yeah, man, I don't...
Calm down, perp, shot him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like how much of it is you're there and it's, dude, I mean, there were bouncers that used to throw people out just because they didn't like them, and they'd be like, or, their friend was trying to flirt with a girl, so they would just kick out the guy that was flirting with them. I mean, that was wrong, but am I going to go, hey, we shouldn't do that? Or am I like, hey, these guys give me a free ride to work and I know they have my back. If I shut the fuck up, I know that they have my back, and that when someone does act up, these guys are going to come help me. It's a sticky, I don't think it's as simple as but most of all, I have no idea what it is because I'm not a cop, and everything I've said in the last 30 minutes is just horseshit conjecture as I'm wearing a fucking Pharaoh hoodie and sweatpants. Like, I am not the one to be speaking from my, not ivory tower, but my fucking foam palace of like...
Foam palace.
Like, I do whatever I want. Like, I wake up when I want, I play video games and listen to audiobooks. Like, I have to be aware that, like, I am slowly becoming, like, detached from reality. I'm becoming the thing I hate when it's like, oh, Joe Rogan is like, he's worth $100 million. He can't connect with the average person anymore. I'm not making near that much. I'm not making a thousandth of that. But, man, my life is slowly becoming, I get to do whatever I want. And I need to remember that, like, oh, I'm not dealing with alarms up, baby is crying, I got to go to fucking work. What, my partner's on trial? I don't give a fuck. I've got a blinding headache. My wife can't get health care. Why is the light red? I fucking hate this light. God damn it. I didn't sleep enough last night. Jesus, it was easier when I was younger. God, I can't even fit into this uniform anymore. The last thing I'm thinking about is, today I make a stand. No, I'm going, when do I get off work so I can drown myself in Budweiser? Like, it's, man, I think it's, and furthermore, to show how romantic and detached you and I are, at any point, we can just end this conversation and we no longer have to entertain it. We don't have to go back to work at the precinct. We can just say, and now let's talk about aliens. And it's gone. We can just brush it out the window.
Yes, like, which we're about to do anyway.
Which we're about to do anyway. Did you like my reading?
Yes, I really thought it was amusing because it was like you were doing me. It's like you were doing all of the things that I did when I first started doing this, and it was like, okay, yeah, this is funny, but no, you did well,
Thank you,
and you. I mean, you conveyed the earnestness of it. Of course, it helped that I had read Cliff, so. When we our very first couple of encounters, you had given me a link to it, and so I read it, and so I found it amusing that it's like when you and Alan Bloom,
Howard.
did that interview.
Howard Bloom. You said
Howard
Alan.
Bloom. I'm just ignore me. But no, so y'all came across like long lost brothers, and then when you did the reading, was like, yes, I was going to give him a version that I could point him to the robot, and it's like he realized it was graphic and he couldn't feed it to the robot, and so you decided to read it.
And the thing is I can't find the Word file. I don't know where it is. It's been lost.
But I mean, I'll say this. I think you did as well as I ever did.
That's just, I was saving Cliff for, I was going to read it with you one day. I was going to do a reading for you. But like an idiot, the day before I had talked to Mr. Bloom, and I emailed him that night. I was like, I'll narrate it tomorrow. And it was like the next day came around, and I was like, I'm not going to like not be a man of my word. I told this guy that I was going to narrate it today. I got to do it today. So I was just like, fuck it, I'll do it today. But
anyway, before we start, we have one more reading in the passages cycle.
Yeah.
The very last.
Yeah, no.
Before we start, I wanted to talk about the curators.
Okay.
Now, I am on record a few times as telling you I'm not going to read you the curators because it's 200,000 words. But I've been thinking about it because I realize that you're busy and you're probably never going to actually go to the trouble to optically read it. And I was thinking that we did the first 4 passages stories, each all in one go, and they were all about 10,000 words. Now, the curators is about 100 episodes, but book 1, which is self-contained and complete, is 40 episodes. It's 80,000 words. And each episode of the curators is about 2,000 words. A few of them are longer, but for the most part, that was sort of my goal. I mean, and it's in the form of a serial. So each segment, each episode has a little hook to encourage you to come back for the next one. And I was thinking that if I did 4 at a time, then that would be about the same for each block as one of the first passages stories. And we would get through book 1 in about 8 podcasts.
I'm down.
And that seems reasonable. Yeah. That would be something I would be willing to do if you're interested.
Absolutely, I am.
And because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Honestly, there's a lot of cool stuff I would really like to share with you. I would really like to see what you think of it.
Fuck yeah.
Bounce it off of you.
Fuck yeah.
And because the curators is in between. Mopey is so near future. It is actually the accessible part of it is set in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's the singularity occurred in 1988.
Yeah.
And Passages is very far in the future. Even the most immediate Passages stories are tens of thousands of years in the future, and Revelation Passages literally 1 billion years in the future. But the Curators starts in 2040, in the 2040s. So it is actually a little more accessible near future. It's just a completely different thing than anything you've seen me do. So I think it would be kind of cool.
Absolutely.
And besides which,
and who cares,
right?
Dude? Maybe it takes 2 years to go through it all. I mean, what's the rush?
Well,
where are we going? What are we doing?
Yeah. Well, if we do it that way, it won't take that long. If we do it like 4 episodes at a time, because the thing is, it took me 2 years to write it, and it took me 2 years to publish it on Reddit, but I was doing one 2,000-word episode a week. So I think if we block them together in 4 episodes per reading, then we can do all 4 things. We can do the entire series in about 6 months.
Yeah.
And there are breaks. So we could take a little breather between the books, which is actually what I did when I was writing it. Plus, there are changes from book to book. Like in book 1, there are no names. One of the things I did is all of the characters have letters for names. After what I did in Casino Odyssey, because I was preserving privacy, and I was trying to get over this thing that happens a lot on HFY, where you have the weird alien names things, and people go zoop 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 zoop.
Yeah.
It's like random string of letters or whatever. It's like, fuck that. Let's call this guy X.
Yeah.
Or Z or whatever. And in book 2, I abandoned that. I gave everybody real names. And went in a slightly different tangent. So, but everyone who has commented on it said they were real impressed with the world building. I'm really proud of that, because especially when you see where it starts with nothing. It starts literally, a dermatologist has an alien walk into his office.
Yeah, he's got like blue skin and he's changing colors and shit.
Yeah, and where it ended up, my wife is the one who said, you need to write more about this, so you have more to say about this universe. And boy, was she right.
Fuck yeah. Dude, we can do as many as we want. I mean, my logic is like, we're just on like a super long plane ride. It's like the destination is like the podcast blowing up and me becoming a billionaire. But we're just on this rock.
Did you see Joe Rogan went anti-vax? He went and said, "Well, if you're young and healthy, you don't need to bother getting the vaccine. I would advise you not to do it." And he caught a truckload of shit for that.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, and it's
a well-deserved truckload of shit. I would add.
Yeah, he said he got beat down for it, and it's for me more than anything. My stance is not that I agree or disagree with him. I just think we should be able to talk about it. That's my contention. Is everyone's like, Tommy, you're anti. I'm like, I am absolutely not. I am absolutely not anti-vax. I have all of my vaccines. Yeah. Thank you very much. I just think we should be able to talk about it, because when someone says you can't talk about something, that's when my spidey senses.
I was struck when you just like I went over to the other site and looked at your interview with the other guy who the
Hodgkinson.
Yes. And I was struck by how thoroughly he had really been canceled. I mean,
oh yeah,
like all right, as much as I am in favor of saying, look, you need to get the fucking vaccine. It's a societal thing. It's not just about you.
Yeah.
On the other, you got a dissenting viewpoint. That's not how you handle it.
It's kind of the antithesis of what our country is founded on. But two, that's not how you when you ban something like that, all you do is make it seem cool and you make it seem esoteric, and you go, oh well, what's the truth here?
Well, you're giving it power. It's
the magic. You're giving it power. So when you ban these episodes, you don't people go, oh, why was that banned? Wow, he can have on CIA and Delta Force guys, but you know what the real esoteric shit is? You know what the Latin truth of the Bible? It's the vaccine. To me, that's all it is. Roger, if you said we can do the history of porn, but damn, we can't talk about the V word. That's what I mean, man. It's if I was like I'm trying to think of an analogy, it'd be like if you came home from work and to your wife and you're like, all these guys came up to me and said that you were cheating on me, and you're like, I know they're not true and I want to prove them wrong. Can you just show me like your text, because I know you didn't. And she's like, no, under no. And you're like, hey, I get privacy and all, but you're like, it's driving me crazy. And I just want to, this is my marriage. And I want to prove them wrong. And she's like, under no circumstances. And if you do try to look at it, I'll burn the house down. And you're like, what the fuck? You're like, we literally share a bank account. Like I've seen you naked more times than not. Like what do you, to me, that's my concern is it's not it's not the fucking vaccine. It's not about the ethanol, the corn ethanol content of gasoline. I don't give a fuck. To me, when someone says you cannot talk about it, and anyone that does talk about it is off the digital world, to me that just makes the hairs stand up. And I'm like,
you're getting penalized for the crime of giving these people a forum. When you're giving them a forum of what? How many listeners do you have? I mean, it's like
5,000. I'm not Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. Yeah, you're not Joe Rogan yet.
To me,
so
it's just. If they're wrong, let their wrong thoughts be shot down in a free marketplace of ideas. Let it die on the altar of public opinion. When you hide it away,
that's what the founding fathers intended. They had all those pamphleteers running around in France. They knew exactly what they were getting into when they wrote the First Amendment.
Yeah. So. That's why we have body cams on police officers. So instead of just having to take your word for it, we can look at it and we go, oh, if there's no body cam, who knows how many people have been like, you can't prosecute Chauvin. But now we see it and we're all like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you got to go. That's the free marketplace. You put it out there and it was shot down. It's when you go, you can't talk about this, dude. I'm sorry. Nothing is going to win me over less than me going, yeah, no, we're just talking about the vaccine. I'm just curious because, I'm just interested about it because I'm 30, I'm healthy. And they go, no, and your channel's blocked. I'm like, well, now, even if my mom came to me with it, I would be like, just why can't I talk about it? Nothing is going to make me want something less than if someone says, under no circumstances can you talk about this. You are not winning me over that way. Roger, don't look around, Roger. Don't look at your phone. Don't look at the emergency calls from your wife. Just trust me when I say, put this tab on your tongue. I know you've only known me for a year. Don't call the cops. Don't you dare call. If you call the cops, I'll shoot you in the head. Take this. You're like, Tommy, is it acid? And I'm like, don't talk to anyone. Just put the tab in your mouth. Now, do it now, Roger. And you're going to be like, dude, Tommy, if you had come to me with acid, I might have said, sure, let's have a good time. But now you're creeping me out. And I'm covering your windows and I throw your phone at the wall and I cut your phone lines and I'm like, Roger Williams, you are going to take this tab and you are going to take it now. And you're like, what is it? And I'm like, take it now. You're going to be like, dude.
It's like, oh fuck, it's the they live classes.
And then it turns out that what it actually was is it was just a multivitamin. And you'd be like, dude, why didn't you just tell me it was a multivitamin? And I'd be like, because I really wanted you to take it. You'd be like, Tommy, I would have taken it. I would have without a moment's hesitation if you had said, hey, I got these new Centrum multivitamins. You go, oh, cool. That's where I'm coming from, is so when people are like, no, can't look at it. Don't look over here. And I'm like, well, now when someone's like, you can't look at anything. Just come over here. And I'm like, well, no, I don't. With the same hesitation, if a homeless guy came up to me with a syringe and was like, you want to see God? I'd be like, no, dude, I don't want whatever.
Not that much.
That's what I mean, is that's my concern. That's my concern. That's all my concern is. And so I'm not being won over, Roger, let me pee real quick before we do this reading. All
right.
This podcast has gone in 100 million directions. I don't know what the title of this is going to be.
Revelation Passage Part 5.
What about Chauvin vaccine?
Well, we're going to do Revelation Passage 5, which is the culmination of the Revelation Passages series. This is going to be the last passage in the Void reading that I will ever do for you because we've done them all.
Episode 446, Masters and Slaves, by Roger Williams. The reason the masses and the workers...
We all lived together down here.
We all lived together. We was all friends.
Along Brer Rabbit.
Now, Lord, the Lord preordained us.
Oh, that's another one. It's like Song of the South. You can't, it's like don't throw me in that bra patch, Brett. And it's like, no one can see that cartoon anymore.
Yeah.
It's like another generation. No one's going to know what the fuck you're talking about when you say, don't throw me in that bra patch.
Yeah,
that's going to be lost. It's wrong thing.
It's when you hide things, it just becomes all the more dangerous. Just get on the train. Where's the train going? Just get on the train. You'd be like, I just want to know where the train's going. It is going. You are going to work. We are cleansing.
Yes,
we are cleansing.
Work will make you free.
Work will make you free. You want to be free? We are cleansing. We are cleansing all of society, as Judenkind. You'd be like, can I just? Where the train's going? Get on the train now. Schnell. Okay, well now I'm very concerned about getting on this train, Hans. Like, that's what I mean. Now, if you show me the train,
this is looking like a really bad idea.
Yeah. Now, if you show me the train, you go, oh, it goes to Brooklyn. There's a badass pizza place down there. Fuck yeah, let's get on the train. Just when you don't look in what's in those cars. Why does it smell like dead bodies? It's not the bodies. It's just train smell. It's. I'd be like, well, Hans, no, thank you.
This looks an awful lot like a cattle car.
This looks an awful lot like a cat. Where is everyone? Why is there... What is that? Why do you have barbed wire fences with gunning towers around the summer camp? Are you being honest with me, Hans?
Yes, it's just a youth camp, Like,
why are you being...
We want to make sure the kids are having fun.
So just going there, we are working. You look able-bodied. You can lift. You can move, right? Yes.
Yes, we have rockets to be made.
We have rockets. You want to go to the moon? Who doesn't like rockets, huh? Come on, who's my little schnitzel? I got your nose. That's all. I watched this video the other day of this. There's this. I don't know if there's like a name for it, but there's this cool kind of intersection of where the earliest videos and like audio devices, when they were first kind of came to like commercial use, there were some big brain thinkers that were like, the first thing we need to do is interview the oldest people alive so we can get as far. So you have all these really cool interviews from like the 1920s of people in their 90s
who remember the Civil War and shit.
It's this. There's an actual photograph of a guy who was he was like 102 when the photograph was taken, and it's like the earliest camera, but it's a dude that was in the boat with Washington when they crossed the Delaware. There's a photograph of him. A photograph, not a painting. There's an interview of this guy, and the interview was in the 1930s, I think, and this dude was old as shit. But it's this dude talking about like growing up as a slave under who was supposed to be the president of the Confederacy? What was his name?
Jefferson Davis.
Yes, yeah, Massa Davis, and that's how he talked about him. And it's this craziest thing because you're listening to it. And he's got nothing but good things.
Well, there was
a
lot of that was done as part of the New Deal under FDR, and that was one of the things they did a lot of these sociological projects as part of the New Deal, and so at that time there were still a lot of old people around who were children at the time, but did remember the Civil War. And so they got a lot of material because at that time they did have recording devices and they had film cameras, and so they collected a lot of material because they had a lot of funding, because that was one of the things that they poured money into to keep people working. So we got a lot of incredible background information from that.
They're insane. There are some from like the 1910s of these old white dudes with big long beard. There's one picture. There's a picture of an old, I think, Union general being flown in an Army Air Forces aircraft after World War II over, I think, Gettysburg. And it's this dude in an aluminum fuselage pressurized plane looking down at Gettysburg from like 20,000 feet. And it's just like, holy fuck. And that's what I didn't know that was part of the New Deal, though. That's insane.
Yeah, that was part of the that whole all of that public works stuff. There's a whole shitload of stuff at our zoo, at Audubon Zoo, that was built as part of that, and now, because the standards have increased for how do you keep animals, what they've done is they built new and more modern enclosures for the animals at the zoo, and they've taken those old enclosures from the 30s and repurposed them for human shit. So they've got what used to be an aquarium, it's this big round building, and now it's like an exhibit hall.
Now we just throw the inmates in there. Because those standards aren't up to tier yet. We throw the inmates where we used to put the tigers. No, it's fine. The humans are fine.
Yeah, but it's basically they were throwing work at anyone who could do anything that might be useful, and that was one of the things is they did these ethnographic background things, and it turned up because it was in time to catch a lot of the old people who remembered the Civil War and Reconstruction, and they gathered a lot of information in that time period that probably would have been lost if it wasn't for the Great Depression and the New Deal.
Yeah. Well, it's, what it's very similar to? It's very similar to Prime Intellect, finding the oldest person. Who is the person that needs help now? I wonder if we'll see another version of that with maybe something like Neuralink or any successors of Neuralink, where maybe it's like you could actually map people's memories. The first thing you would do is you'd find the oldest people who remembered. I mean, now, let's say you're 100 now, that means that you would have been 7 during the Great Depression? That's the new far back, right? So you'd have people I remember my grandma telling me about, she was like, I vaguely remember Pearl Harbor. I vaguely remember it being on the news. My mom has told me she remembers, she's like, I remember my mom crying when JFK was killed. My mom was like, I was 5, but I vaguely just remember my mom crying. Or I was 11. I remember my mom picking me up on 9/11 from school because school was shut down early. It's these early kind of, and my grandma passed away 3 years ago, but up until then it was crazy. You could ask her, she'd be like, oh yeah, no, I remember, hearing about Pearl Harbor, and it's just holy shit. And I wonder if we'll have something like Neuralink. Maybe they can map the exact memories for VR recreation. I don't know. I don't know. But most importantly, just remember that everything is good now because the masses and the slaves work together and they live together. And at
least in New Orleans.
See, if that doesn't get my podcast banned, but a vaccine episode does, don't tell me that you don't understand why people might go, well, what's the vaccine episode about? Not this one. This one's fine. But that one has to go. Well, man, to me, that's like a kid seeing, parental advisory on a CD. I'm like, I want that one. I want the M&M CD that's covered with prescription pills. Why can't I listen to Slim Shady? And then you turn it on. It's put 9-inch nails through my eyelids. Hi, kids. And it's it's when you hide M&M. Yeah, that's the first thing I went to. My parents were like, you can play this Call of Duty World War II game on your PlayStation 2, but you can't play Grand Theft Auto 3. I'm like, I never even knew what Grand Theft Auto was until you just said those words. But now me and my brothers are going to go to fucking Blockbuster and see if they have it. And we're going to get it, and we're going to chop hookers' heads off with a katana because it's what we're not allowed to do.
Yes.
So if this episode's fine, yes, massa, no, sir. If this episode's fine, but don't you dare watch episode 411, I mean, dude, the little kid in you is going to go, well, what's episode 411? And it's, ooh, that's the verboten. Do you want to pull aside the veil? Do you want to come into the antechamber? Talk about the vaccine.
Yes.
I'm going to go pee now.
So you want to go, go pee? I'll let everyone know to get my book. Okay, so... as I always do in Time It Takes a Pee Break, I wrote The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, Roger Williams. And if you would like a paper copy of it, as a lot of people have wanted, I encourage you to go to lulu.com instead of Amazon. it will cost you the same, because the contracts that make it possible for Amazon to carry it and for the other generic booksellers to carry it require everybody to charge the same list price. But Lulu is the publisher of Origin, and if you buy it from them, they have to charge the same, but they give me the rest of the money. So if you buy it from Amazon, I get about $50. If you buy it from Lulu, I get more like $6. So just saying, it's a little less convenient. Obviously, you can't do the one-click thing and all. But they do have very good customer service. They're very friendly to deal with. And I've never had a bad experience with them. And if you do, let me know. But that's the spiel. Now, if you want an ebook, if you want it on Kindle or any of the other formats, then Amazon is fine, because for those things, they are the publisher of Origin, and so it doesn't make a difference for that. So it's only basically if you want a copy that you can read in the bathtub or whatever. Then I actually had a fan tell me that's why they wanted a printed copy. So anyway, I think Tommy's bathroom is a little further from his office than mine.
Roger, why aren't you monologuing?
I've been monologuing.
I'll fucking fight you, dude.
I just finished. I just finished my monologue.
I will fight
you. I just said I think your bathroom is probably a little further from your office than mine is.
No, it's about 8 feet.
Well, what took so long?
I take my time. Get into the reading?
Okay. Yes, let's do the reading.
Yes, Massa.
Okay.
Yes, Massa.
So, Revelation Passage is the capstone of the Passages in the Void series, and it consists of 5 episodes that I wrote all at the same time. Within the 5 episodes are 6 parts that don't exactly align with the episode edges, because I broke them up to make what I thought would be a little better publication schedule type of thing. And of course, all that went to shit because some asswipe at Corrosion wrote a voting bot to prevent me from posting it there. So I ended up putting it on my own website instead. But this is episode 5, the 5th of the 5 Revelation Passage episodes. And I don't know if you remember, but we started Revelation Passage with part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So this is part 1. And the reason it's part 1 is that all of the other stories, the other 4 episodes of Revelation Passage have been set about 1.2 billion years in the future, when a couple of different spaceships made it from the Milky Way to some galaxy about 20 million light years from here. This story is set 500 million years in the future, 700 million years in the past from the stories in episodes 1 through 4. So it's set 200 million years after the Paleobringer departed, the bad guy who creeped you out so much from episode 4. Okay, so but this is in the Milky Way, in a galaxy, in a world of about 30,000 light years from Earth. Revelation 5, the Queen of the Galaxy, part 1. The transition from mech to bio isn't usually very startling. I woke up on a hard slab, mainly because the nanomachinery prefer to operate in a clean environment, but I was warm and comfortable. I sat up, swung my legs over the edge of the platform, and found a mirror waiting for me so I could examine my new body. It wasn't what I would tend to wear. My skin was darker, my features a bit sharper, but the changes were expected, and I found the result pleasing. Being newly bio, though, I was a bit startled at my own clarity of thought. Being bio usually means feeling a bit muddled, but my mission required something a bit different. My brain wasn't biological. It was a diamondoid supercomputer running a very perfect simulation of a brain. It could perfectly express love and lust, pain and wonder, but unlike a normal brain, it could also hold most of my memories. I passed into the antechamber and found clothing. It was very fine and showed evidence of having been assembled by human labor rather than automation. I savored the sensation as it slid over my skin. When you're a mech, there's a tendency to tune out or not bother simulating such distractions. The uncontrollable richness of sensation is one reason people drop into bio from mech. It's a thing that probably could be simulated, but when you have perfect control, it seems kind of ridiculous, a waste of processing power. There was another mirror, and I passed into the entryway. There was a steel door with a prominent sign. I laughed when I saw this because I was very likely to be the only human being who would ever pass and see this device, and so it was comically redundant. Leaving Minervan Zone. Beyond this point, social and technological restrictions of the Paleo-Human Empire are enforced. Re-entry may be denied. Bringing prohibited Minervan artifacts beyond this point may be punishable according to Paleo-Human laws. I smiled at this because one of those bits of forbidden Minervan technology would be my brain. The accommodation had already been worked out, though, and all parties had agreed on it. I would be a poor representative of my culture if I could not bring my memories with me. I went through the door. Beyond it was a long corridor. The Paleos have a strict two-tier social structure. They have only one mech personality, the original bringer, who my people know was originally human and named Tom. And their humans never become mech. They generally live less than 300 standard years in a single linear instance, at the end of which they die permanently. Although the Paleo-Human mech really run their worlds, they have an elaborate system for the fulfillment of human social needs, which includes a royalty, which theoretically represents the people to their machines. And while the oldest Paleo-Human worlds, such as Tristan, had been overrun in the war, a very few old worlds survived. Loki, where I had been awakened, is the oldest, and therefore its human royalty are technically the ruling monarchs of the Paleo-Human sphere of influence. Ending the war had taken 250 million years. Although it had been proven that faster-than-light communication was possible over interstellar distances, it was hard to maintain such lines in an environment of constant sabotage and attack. The galaxy is 100,000 light-years across, and reaching a consensus seemed almost impossible. Had we not gotten the news from Andromeda that they had linked their galaxy together peacefully, we might never have managed it. The mech had made their peace, but the Paleos had asked the Minervans to place a Minervan human in the Paleo royal line to cement our agreement for their humans. And so that was my mission. I would live and die as a Paleo to demonstrate Minervan tolerance for their ideals. At the far end of the corridor, there was another door with a comical sign warning that I was about to enter the sphere of Paleo-Human influence. I passed through, and before me stood Crown Prince Alex of Loki. He bowed slightly, and I returned the gesture. "You're quite beautiful," he said, and I could tell it wasn't just protocol. The Minervan mech had been as discreet as possible, but they had gathered every bit of data possible about the prince's sexual preferences and fantasies, and they had designed my body to conform as closely as possible to what he might want. For my part, I also felt a pang of lust when I felt my eyes fell on the prince, and I knew that was because my makers had edited my sexual preferences to make sure I would find him appealing. Oddly, it is exactly the sort of meddling that the Paleos seem to find most distasteful about our lifestyle, yet it seems silly to argue with the convenience. If the purpose of my remaining life was to basically bear children for this man, why shouldn't I be programmed to enjoy it? And you quite handsome, Prince Alex, I said. I think we might make a good couple. He looked puzzled. I'm surprised, Princess. I was told that your brain is a diamond. I expected something more mechanical. He nodded. You seem quite human. I am human. My brain is diamondoid, but my people are very skilled at making such a thing do what your natural brain does. My brain is capable of love, loyalty, and lust. I glanced significantly at his crotch. And I think I'm going to enjoy this duty. He laughed sharply. And humor, I see. I just nodded. He gestured. There was another long corridor. We walked together. My life is public. I assume you know all about me, the prince said, and I nodded. Yet I know nothing about you. Given that we are to marry this day, could you enlighten me? Once upon a time, I said, there was a girl 10 years old and afflicted with a withering disease. This was about 300 million years ago. Her body was aging at more than 10 times the normal rate. She had heart disease and arthritis, and in those days the bringers could not cure her affliction. But she lived on a Minervan world, and the first new experiments were being done in the direction that had produced Bringer Tom so many millions of years earlier. The little girl learned of this and insisted that she would rather face the microtome and simulation than the ruin that was her natural body. Because it was a Minervan world, she got her wish. As far as we know, I, was the second person ever successfully digitized after Bringer Tom himself. You're 300 million years old? He whistled softly. For someone like me, age is a little complicated. I've lived many lifetimes, some in parallel, and sometimes I've slept in perfect stasis for the aeon of an interstellar journey. As a mech, I can be copied, and if two instances of me meet, we can share memories or rejoin. Although my memory is much larger than a normal human's, I've still forgotten most of the details of my life. My mental processes are the same as yours. But you could rejoin your sisters, the prince said. I shook my head. Not now. In this instance, I will live and die as one of you. That is my commitment to your people. But you won't really die if there are so many other copies of you out there. How many of those copies will be your wife, Crown Prince Alex? How many will be the first queen of a galaxy united after aeons of war? And it's worth it to you to accept permanent death to be my wife? I've died many times. But it's the one thing my vast memory does not include, because the instances of me that died could not share such a memory with those of me that lived. My sisters will be jealous of this instance because none of them can ever share it. They will be proud but wistful. This will be my life. Mine. I gripped his hand hard. That is one thing my culture cannot provide. I like your passion, the prince said. And I almost shot back, we knew you would, but I bit my lip instead. Before we could be married, we had a duty to perform. And we reached the end of the corridor, it ran to stairs that reached a dais, and beyond the dais were between 162,000 and 168,000 people. It was hard for me to form a better estimate because the fringes of the crowd were barely visible. To our side, a loud amplified voice said, "She is here!" And the crowd roared. I stepped up on the dais, and for a brief instant, a laser scanner flashed the message, "Zone of voice amplification," on my retina. The older man who had said, "She is here," gestured toward my future husband and said, "Crown Prince Alex." The crowd roared. Alex took up the announcer's position. "Citizens of Loki and of the galaxy, Princess Anne of Minerva." I stepped forward and the crowd roared. I bowed appreciatively. Citizens of Loki and of the galaxy, I come to you as a representative of the Minervan Confederation. Today we are prepared to ratify the Paleo-Minervan Accord agreed upon by our bringer caretakers. I have come to marry your prince so that our royal lines might be joined for an aeon in peace and harmony. I didn't bother to mention that I pretty much was the Minervan royal line, such a thing having not previously existed. The crowd predictably roared. Then Alex and I took turns reading the articles of the agreement. I started. 1. All humans on all human worlds, both Paleo-human and Minervan, have the right to know that machine uploading is possible and to request machine uploading at will. I wouldn't exactly say crickets chirping, but the applause was subdued. Alex up. 2. Humans cannot be forced to upload, even when biological death is inevitable. The right to experience a single natural lifetime shall not be infringed just because the technology exists to do otherwise. Much louder applause, though not quite roaring. My turn up. 3. Human worlds may elect by popular majority vote of their human population to expel those who choose to upload. More enthusiastic applause. This was a basic point for this conservative society. We didn't bother to include in the text that we didn't mind putting it in because for an uploaded human, the journey to another star is barely more than a nuisance. Alex up. 4. Uploaded humans can be downloaded back to biological form only on worlds which permit uploading. The crowd was politely enthusiastic. Since they were about to overwhelmingly vote to ban uploading, it didn't concern them. Of course, my presence was technically a violation of this article, but it was another accommodation like that which permitted my diamondoid brain. My turn. 5. Humans will only reproduce biologically, never when uploaded. Polite applause. It probably never even occurred to them just how weird that can get. That clause had been the last sticking point on the Minervan end of the negotiations. There are many on our side who felt it was unnecessarily limiting, but including the clause was preferable to genocidally exterminating the Paleos. It was the one real concession the Minervans made. Alex. 6. Biological humans will not be allowed to ruinously overpopulate their ecosystems. The crowd approved. This was a core point of their philosophy, and I knew it had been the first point of agreement between the negotiators. I finished it up. 7. Biological human evolution will be constrained to forms which could interbreed with our original ancestors on Earth at the time of the extinction at Reykjavik. And at this, the crowd really did roar. I think this, more than anything, drove the paleo-human resistance, that there would end up being multiple and branching and incompatible species, all considering themselves human. That such incompatibility could easily be fixed in the digital realm was something they didn't quite get. But the reverse was also true. We were willing to put such clauses in the agreement because we knew what was possible for a natural human who chose to become mech. It wasn't really much of a limitation for us. Loki was a starless world, so the atmosphere was usually cloudy to form an insulating barrier between the geothermal taps and the cold of space. This being a special occasion, though, the clouds had been thinning over the crowd since before we began speaking. As we finished our presentation and prepared to ratify the agreement, the first stars began to come out. Finally, the prince produced the ceremonial knife, and each of us made a shallow cut in our right wrist, and we pressed the cuts together to mingle our blood. With this act, we ratified the Paleo-Minervan Accord, and at that point, the galaxy ship that had brought my personality to Loki turned on its engines. For the first time since it had been ejected from its stellar system, Loki knew daylight, at least over an area of a few hundred square kilometers. Orbiting just below geosynchronous orbit, the Galaxy ship had oriented its collector array to reflect the brilliance of its engine radiation. From the surface, within the focus zone centered on our ceremony, it made a very passable imitation of a star. The crowd gasped and gaped. Fortunately, the Galaxy ship wasn't radiating too much in the ultraviolet, so nobody was likely to go blind from staring at it. "So is this daylight?" Prince Alex asked softly. I could have pointed out half a dozen flaws. The, quote, sun, unquote, had a little black dot in the middle, no sunspots, a distinct radial structure, and totally wrong spectrum outside the visible. But then again, people who did not have diamondoid retinas would probably not notice such things, so I said, yes. Prince Alex then pointed and said, what is that color phenomenon? The clouds had cleared, but Loki's upper atmosphere was still full of water, and the droplets were making themselves known. A rainbow. You don't normally see them because your daylights are diffuse. You need a point source. Look, there's a second set. It's reversed. See, the blue is outside. What causes these? Well, the boring explanation involves refraction of light and water droplets, but some say the rainbow is a promise by those who guard us not to destroy the world again. The prince stared up at the sky for a long moment. This is a good sign, then, that our guardians have sent. Many worlds have been destroyed in the course of this war. Is this their promise that no such things will ever happen again? Oh, I knew it was more complicated than that, but it was easiest to say, I think so. A tenth of the day later, we were married. This is the final instance of Passages in the Void, 2002 through 2007, by Local Roger, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Beautiful, Roger. I feel like that's exactly how it would play out. Like, we are going to come to a crossroads where there's going to be a whole, do you upload or not? And there's going to be some fucking historical moment like the Magna Carta or the Declaration of Independence, and there's going to be a thing. I think that was a beautiful illustration of it.
Thanks.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I had to kind of talk myself into doing the time scales, but I realized that things would probably become very static in both of these societies, and with both of them keeping evolution from proceeding, so that, because you got to remember, 500 million years ago, Earth was having a Cambrian explosion, inventing multicellular life, much less us.
Yeah.
So the idea that recognizable humans will still be around 500 million years in the future, at first sounded a little wacky even to me, but then I started to realize that you're going to have a thing where medical procedures and the intervention of the machines would probably cause the genome to focus in on a relatively narrow scope. And so you wouldn't have a lot of variance. You wouldn't have a lot of evolution going on. Or if you did, it would be in a direction like, we're headed to a space where humans won't be able to reproduce without medical technology to do C-sections, because so many human females now can't safely give childbirth without having a C-section. And but they're still genetically the same. They can, so anyway, it's one of those things. I sort of hand waved a thing that I didn't completely believe in myself, that recognizable humans could still be around after 500 million years of continuous, breeding without, cold sleep or something. Mm-hmm. But given that, that was the story. And, Passages was always about long time spans, and having kind of a bit of fun with that.
I fucking loved it, man. I did, and I do think that's what it's gonna be. There's gonna be some weird bifurcation between like augmented, and then the whole argument's gonna come up is, where does augmentation begin? You know, if you get LASIK, is that augmentation? Well, no, it's because, you know, it was a change to, okay, what about a pacemaker? What about Neuralink? What about a stent? What about, you know, an insulin pump? Yeah. It's what about a titanium leg? What about a synthetic hip? And it's gonna, you know, it's like, when did the Golden Gate Bridge cease to be the original Golden Gate Bridge? Because almost every piece in it has been replaced now due to the caustic erosion of the seawater and the saltwater air. At what point?
Yeah. At
what point is it going to be that's a humanoid hybrid? Where are we going to draw the line? And I can't wait for the social media shit show of a bunch of back when I was growing up, humans were humans, and it's, you know, just a bunch of horse shit.
Yeah, and that's almost kind of what happens with the Paleos and the Minervans. It's, and I guess there's part of me that was actually looking at the stuff that we're doing here and sort of mirroring it, only on like 3 orders of magnitude bigger. So
you know what's good? It's kind of great is, and I'm pretty retarded with this shit, but from what I understand, deep fakes are, I guess in like the dumbest way, is like the more data you can input, the more realistic they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I've done 446 episodes. There's a lot of data of my facial expressions and my tones and different lighting. Man, how long until you do an episode with me and it's not me and you have no idea, and then I come in the episode after that and I go right back to it and you never knew there was an AI? That's gonna be weird, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they can do deep fakes in real time yet. But that's just coming. That's just a matter of processing power.
I mean, the original deep fakes were just Photoshop, and then they turned it to video, and the next thing is it's just going to be... Yeah. I mean, or you could do a solo rant deep fake.
Yeah, I've actually done enough time with you. I mean, because the background is always pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So I've probably given them enough data. So somebody could actually probably do a deep fake of an interview between the two of us.
Absolutely.
Where each of us is doing exactly the opposite of what the real us actually believes.
Exactly. They could have conservative pro-Trump Roger, and they could have liberal Tommy, and we could just be arguing these viewpoints.
And I know people who would think that would be a fucking hilarious joke.
Or it would be like, yeah, I could have Dale on here arguing for like the confiscation of guns and the limit of like and the shutdown of the military. And I could have you on here talking about, I don't know, you and I talk about enough bullshit. I think any of it's believable. But I've thought about it.
Yeah. I was talking about calibers and rounds and all the, you don't have me actually holding a gun, but
that would be the easiest part.
We could do that.
That would be the easiest part. Put a fake gun in your hand. I do have you holding a vacuum tube. I could just replace that. Yeah, it's I've always wondered that. We know
the background.
Yeah. Well, you know, the military is always like 20 years ahead with all sorts of technology, whether it's propellants or armors or communications. You got to think, why wouldn't they be 20 years ahead with some sort of deep fake? I mean, there could be real political power. And, you know, there was a lot of concern when Reagan was, when the assassination attempt, or I believe when, was it H.W. Bush? Maybe it was, had heart surgery, or... There were these weird times, or maybe it was George W. Bush and Dick Cheney took over, but there were these weird, questionable times.
Yeah,
where
I think it was W that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
And Cheney took over.
Yeah, there were these weird shifts in power, and they would keep them.
Yeah, when Reagan was shot, there was actually some heated discussion about who was in charge.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, there was this whole questioning about what happened, and more than anything, they realized I
don't remember who it was, but I remember seeing a quote that somebody told somebody, "Yeah, you better go back and read your Constitution, buddy."
Yeah. Because one guy was like, "I'm in charge now," and they're like, "What the?" But it wasn't even like. It wasn't even his VP. It was some like HW was.
No, it was. Yeah, it was like some levels down.
Yeah, and it was like, dude, maybe in the line of succession you are, but it's like HW Bush is right here. He's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Was HW his VP?
Yes.
He was? Okay.
HW was Reagan's VP.
Okay. But the point is but I think it was the Joint Chiefs of Staff or maybe someone in the intelligence community, they realized the importance of I think I got a bug bite. It was they had to keep that stuff hyper classified because they didn't want there to be a window where our enemies would know that technically we were kind of up in the air, because that's all it takes. I mean, it takes 4 minutes from a submarine launched ballistic missile to go from the Atlantic Ocean to DC. It's not a lot of time.
Yep.
You got to think, what if Trump, like, what if he actually like went down and out with COVID? What if he was out for like 2 weeks? Or what if Biden fucking, had a stroke? Or what if Obama had an aneurysm? What if we had these things where it was like, in time, sure, yeah, we've got the line of succession, we got it all figured out. But in those brief moments, do you want China or Iran going, is Trump down with COVID? You got to think that they're going to fucking use their supercomputer to create a fake Trump or a fake Biden coming out and going, had a slip and fall, but we're all good. That's what America's about, isn't it? Wouldn't that have a tactical advantage on par with weapons or submarines or guns?
They would have to also inject it into our network somehow in a believable way. I think current level of technology, that would be very difficult.
But it kind of hides itself. Who wants to be the person saying, I think that's a deep fake of the president? Like, all right, dude, fucking psychopath.
Yeah. Well, and also if you somehow hijack a major network like CNN, and manage to create a fake newscast, then the real newscasters are going to know that they didn't make it.
Well, you wouldn't.
So you only have a few minutes there.
You wouldn't do a press. You wouldn't do a briefing. You would do a released from the White House. Is what you would do.
Yeah.
You would just upload a video to YouTube. You wouldn't. You'd have to keep the number of moving parts.
It would be tricky. Now, I think it's a marginal space. Now, actually, it would have been easier to fake a Twitter feed from Twitler.
Sure.
Oh, excuse me.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. If you, absolutely. Just characters.
Yeah. Even if there was an attached video, that would be much easier than injecting anything into the news services. But that was one of the things about the way Trump was using social media that bugged some people, is that there was no security at all on it.
Oh yeah.
So the possibility of someone taking Trump out, and then if they knew that he was about to be taken out, using the opportunity to then step in and become him on social media
for that small window of time,
could have been very powerful and for a small window of time.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons that I think the security people were just freaked out that he was doing this, because he was bypassing all of the protocols.
Yeah.
And those protocols exist for a reason. And that's one of the reasons, is to make sure that if you're getting information from the president, it's really the president that you're getting it from.
You'd be proud of my ingenuity. When I was first making designs like this, I was so proud of them, and they took so much time, but I didn't know how to copyright them. And I was like, So what I did was I looked up and I realized that all of the presidential social media accounts all go to the Library of Congress. They're there are copies printed out and stuff, because it's all part of, it's official, official communications of the president, right? Just like letterhead from like FDR or something. So those things all exist in a sort of frozen state that can't be manipulated because it's U.S. It's I guess U.S. history, which got me thinking that all replies to the president's Twitter are also part of it. So what I would do is something completely had nothing to do with politics. I would just post a thumbnail of my image to one of Trump's tweets, and I would just say, Tommy Kerrigan, original artwork, August 5th, 2018. I was just like, I'll use the security of the United States. That will be my copyright.
I will actually say that when Valparaiso approached me about optioning the movie rights to Moby, one of the things is that we actually had to have a copyright. We in order for the paperwork to be complete, I had to have it copyrighted and registered with the Library of Congress. And Elaine took care of that. And she said she got in touch with them, and they were very helpful. She said that she got in touch with the person there. When she explained what we were trying to do, they basically guided her through the process. Told her what the requirements were, what had to be provided and all, and basically made it very painless in order to get. So the Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect now has a valid U.S. copyright as well as an ISBN.
Oh yeah.
So. That was because it's one of the things without, Hollywood can't do their paperwork unless they have that. So that was one of the interesting things that happened with the whole process there.
Question. If I become president one day, can we continue to do podcasts? Would that be frowned upon? Would it be the equivalent of
I suspect that there would have to be a controlled communication channel. We probably wouldn't be allowed to do it over Zoom, and right. There might need to be a Secret Service presence at this end, just to make sure that nothing untoward was going on. But obviously, presidents do have interactions with people, who are not physically in the room, and
that would be such an interesting. Man, it would be.
But I'm going to be your vice president.
That's
anyway,
very true.
So.
That's very true. It would just be you and I at the Oval Office. I'd be wearing a hoodie.
There'd be on the other side of the. Yes, yeah.
There'd be all these lawsuits about me using the office to push my merch. I'd be like, he is making money from the office of the presidency, and I'd be like, there are no conflicting interests. But I would never wear a suit and tie. I'd be meeting with Xi Jinping, and I'd be wearing my hoodies. I'd be very clearly using state media.
I would like to see that.
It would just be me, and I'd be.
That would be totally cool.
I'd be giving Mao or whoever the fucking Putin. I'd be giving him some free hoodies, and I'd be like, tell your friends where you got it. Use this promo code. Like, share, subscribe. They'd be like, you're the president of the United States, and I'd be like, content's king, baby. It's just fuck yeah, dude. I mean, that would be the ultimate influencer. Fucking posting podcasts from Air Force One. Man, I would I do, and then we'll wrap this up. I am upset that Trump didn't do anything with Area 51. If there was any president that was ever gonna just be like, little gray aliens, gross, disgusting, tiny penises, it would have been him, and he didn't. And I won't lie, I'm a little upset. I thought on his way out he would have declassified some 1947 shit, and he didn't. And I feel a little betrayed.
Don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, I don't think there's much.
Your heroes will betray you.
Yeah, never meet them. I'll get to the presidency, and my first thing will be we're going out to Area 51.
Yeah.
And it'll
be like Independence Day. Well, it's not entirely true.
That's not entirely true. 2 words, Mr. President: plausible deniability. Yeah, it's But you know what I would do is I would act like the same fucking dramatic bitch I am on this podcast when my stuff gets censored. I'd be like, why can't we go out there? Huh? Why can't we go out there? As they're like leading me back in Air Force One, I'll be like, I just wanted to see what was at Groom Lake. I just want to see what was, if you got nothing to hide, why can't we go out there? I think it's a simple question. People will be like, Jesus Christ. I long for the day.
Yes, Mr. President. Here's something that'll make you feel better.
Yeah.
16 hours later, you wake up in the White House. Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah, be like, they're keeping us from area.
Everything is cool. The war, we averted the war. You know, it's.
I would get in there and I'd be trying to like Morse code with my eyes. Remember that prisoner of war in Korea or Vietnam? I'd be
torture.
I would just be saying aliens. I'd be aliens, but I'd be doing it wrong, so I'd end up saying like some racial slur. I'd be like, all Mexicans are rapists. They'd be like, what the fuck? That's probably the real fear. Is I would get in there and I'd realize that like the seat of the presidency was not the helm of power.
Yeah. Funny thing about Morse code, they recently instituted a bunch of security shit on all the computers at work, and one of the things is that they all have to have passwords now. Yeah. And I'm totally not down with that. I mean, like, especially if they need to be changed periodically. It's like I got enough shit in my life. So there is a teeny little microprocessor board called a DigiSpark. It's about that big, and half of it is the plug that plugs into a USB socket. And it is just smart enough to pretend to be a keyboard for a USB socket to a computer. And so when they did this password thing, I got a handful of these things and figured out how to use them. And the only modification I made to the board was I added one push button switch. And I programmed it to output a password over the keyboard as if it had been typed from the keyboard. But because I want to be able to do more than one, I didn't want to be just push the button stupidly obvious. There is a Morse code character that you have to tap out. So you have to tap out R, da-da-da, and it logs into my computer. If you just do a T, da, then it emits the password for our Wi-Fi system, which is itself a pain in the ass. It's 47 characters long. And, so this little thing is, but, it was just, you mentioned Morse code, and I was just like, oh, yeah, that was how I did this little ding-ass thing just to basically shit on the guys that, imposed this stupid shit on us. And I also have an alternate password, which if you do Morse code W, da-da-da, instead of da-da-dit, it's not a password it's used for anything. But the day that my computer insists that I create a new password, da-da-da, confirm, da-da-da, boom, I'm in. Then I go into the Arduino thing and I make that the R password and come up with a new alternate password and reflash the DigiSpark. That's the kind of thing nerds like me do.
I came up with a great name for my Wi-Fi. I feel like this podcast is small enough that it's okay to say my... Would it be dumb to say what my Wi-Fi is if someone just really wanted to find me and fuck with my internet connection?
Well, I'm assuming you have the usual password and,
It's got a password.
WPA2 shit on it, so... I mean, if it's open, it doesn't matter, so...
Yeah. Well, now I feel like I'm giving away the nuclear codes. You know what? I won't say my Wi-Fi, and I can use this on my campaign speech. And I'll be like, look, yeah. I am steady-handed. I will not give away the nuclear codes, just like, look at this, episode 446.
Yeah.
Didn't give away my Wi-Fi. Look, I am the person you want to... Mr. Kerrigan, there's a clip of you saying, yes, sir, massa, sir, as well as saying you want to nuke the world for world peace. Those are deep fakes. Next question.
Yes.
That's the future of fake news.
Actually, I have a story I wanted to tell you, too, but I won't do it while you're recording.
Well, that's... All right, now I guess I'll stop recording. Till next time, everybody. Hold on.